morning, homesteaders, gardeners, and cooks. My name is Jennifer. Welcome to Miles Away Farm, or welcome back. I am out here in the raised bed garden for our last garden tour of the year. So we are out here in Southeast Washington, Zone 7A. We did get a very, very, very light frost on the 30th of September, which is unusual for us. We normally don't really get a frost until about the third week in October. And this garden was unaffected by that frost. It didn't really happen out here, but the bigger in-ground garden did get frosted. And so we lost some things out there. And I'm not gonna show you an in-ground garden tour for October because there's not a whole lot left out there other than some tomatoes, and I don't think our sorghum is going to mature in time to harvest, and so that would be the other main crop that's out here. These are 4x8 raised beds. There's 6 of them out here, and I garden organically, mostly no spray, but I do know enough about organic sprays to know what I can utilize when I need to. And so sometimes if I've got a serious pest issue, I will utilize things like Bacillus thuringiensis or some diatomaceous earth or some pyrethrin. So this bed is peppers and eggplant. And honestly, I'm just kind of over eggplant at this point. We do have a nice eggplant here. And there's another one down here. Oh, 2. These are Rosa Bianca, and then the rest of the eggplant that are in here are called Little Finger, which is what these are. And I have harvested lots and lots and lots of eggplant out of here, and honestly, I'm not a giant eggplant eater, and so at this point, I'm just giving them to friends. I'm kind of over it, but I've done quite a bit of cooking and quite a bit of canning with eggplant this year, but it is fun to see how tall these plants have gotten. And the fact that, you know, given the situation, they're still blooming. I mean, you know, if we weren't going to get a frost, we potentially could get even more fruit out of these. This bed is a little bit shaded. We have a walnut tree here, and so we don't get quite as much sun as we could. And so things are a little bit stretched out and leggy because of that, but not enough to completely affect the end result. In here next to this bed, this is horseradish. This was planted by a gopher. I have another horseradish in a different part of the garden, and he took off a chunk of root and drug it all the way over here, and it's been growing ever since. So I will dig this and make some horseradish sauce. Maybe I'll do a video on that. That might be kind of fun. Other peppers in this bed. This red one is Hungarian black, and it is a lovely eating pepper that is not particularly hot. And so that's fun. And there's also a jalapeno in here that I haven't harvested in a little while. And I've got some nice jalapenos in here. I'm gonna have to, maybe I'll do some poppers. I haven't ever done that before. That might be kind of fun. But there's a jalapeno in here with some nice fruit on it. Most of my peppers this year, I didn't grow a lot of hot peppers. Most of the hot peppers have gone into salsa. And then the rest of this bed is sweet peppers of various kinds. Not sure if this is one of the stocky red roasters or if this is Harmon, based on the size. But I've still got some coming. I've harvested quite a few out here, and we're getting kind of the last hurrah before we get a frost. And so, but I've got another 2 or 3 weeks, so I will be able to get quite a few more ripe peppers out of here. I'm not a huge fan of green peppers. They're a little too grassy and green for me. And so I'm going to get as many of these fully ripe as I possibly can. These are very, very sweet, lovely peppers. And there's some big ones in here. I mean, look at that. That's a really good sized pepper in there. One of the things that happens this time of year, you can see this is broken off and is all wrinkled from a windstorm. We did get some pretty good wind. Yeah, peppers coming in. And then this is a pimento. And I didn't get a lot of fruit off of this, but it's a very nice size. And this was from a nursery from a friend of mine. I need to send her a text and ask her what that actually was, variety-wise, because I've grown multiple different kinds of pimentos over the years, and some of them are quite large like this, which I prefer. And some of them are much, much smaller and kind of squat. And they're lovely flavor-wise, but I prefer to get more bang for my buck if I can. This bed, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this so you guys can see it. This bed is cauliflower, broccoli, and cabbage. The end of this here, what we're looking at here, this is cauliflower. And we might make it. I got stuff in a little bit late. In order to do the math to get a fall crop of cauliflower here, you really need to plant your seed around the 1st of July. And it's difficult to start seed that early because it is right in the heat of the summer. And so it's hard to figure out how to manage your crops when there's that much heat. And so I tend to move them around. I start them inside where the temperature is more controlled. And then I put them on the porch in the shade because it's a little cooler, and then they get a little bit leggy. And yeah, so it's a bit of a challenge, and they're usually a little bit stunted from all of that. These are cabbage. So I have a couple cabbage in here. And then these guys, I only have 3, I think, that survived. But these are broccoli. And so again, we're pushing the limits, but we'll see. This one obviously is stunted. And can you see that black stuff on there, those little balls? That's frass. So let's see if we can find who's doing that. Frass is a fancy way of saying caterpillar poop. And there's our caterpillar. So this is the cabbage butterfly caterpillar who's in there munching. And that's why I had this cover on there that you saw me pull off, is they are really abundant, those little butterflies flying around and laying their seeds on Brassica family. And I've been checking this pretty regularly to make sure that I've killed the ones that are in here. For the sake of not being gross, I'm just going to throw him way away. But you can see how this plant is so stunted compared to these plants. What's very likely happened here is something came along and chewed around the base of this stem. Can you see how the bottom of that stem looks like it's white and brown, so a different color? That means that probably slugs or possibly pill bugs came along and just chewed around the base of this plant when it was small. And it wasn't quite enough to kill it, but it was enough to where it can't easily move the nutrients that it needs up and down on the plant. And so it's very common for me with brassicas to have that happen around here, because I have a lot of pill bugs, a lot of earwigs, a lot of slugs, and they just do damage. And so I put down slug bait when these plants are small in an effort to keep that from happening. And it mostly works, but occasionally there's a failure. So if you've got brassicas and they seem weirdly stunted, that very well may be what is happening. Hi, buddy. But we'll see what we get out here. It may pan out, it may not pan out. Another example of a very small little seedling here. You know, you plant a lot of extras and you cross your fingers and hope for the best. But that's the brassica, the late fall brassica bed. And if I do get a nice crop out of there, you guys can look forward to some recipes with me doing things with this crop. And this is frost tolerant, so it will take a light frost and not be terribly damaged. The problem is, as the soil cools down and as the days get shorter this time of year, even though the plants are still alive, they're not super active in terms of their growth because it's just too cold. And so it's really tricky to get the timing right on this stuff. I find that anything that has lasted into early November is usually pretty much, that's all I'm going to get. So if it's not mature by then, I'm done. You can see here, this bed was primarily giant Costata romanesca zucchini. And you can see I've still got 2 plants back here. There were 2 plants right here. We did tear those out because they were clearly getting a virus. I did finally start to see some squash bugs around, and the squash bugs carry a virus. And the fruit itself was getting bumpy, so it was obvious that something was going on. And then the plants were starting to wilt a little bit. We do not have squash vine borers in this part of the country, but we do have lots of squash bugs. And actually, it was amazing that it took as long as it did. This plant survived a very long time, but it was filling up all of this bed and then climbing out here, and it was climbing into this bed, and it had completely covered this pot that I had here. So it was a huge, huge, huge plant. And I probably got, I'm guessing, well over 50, if not 100 zucchinis off of those 2 plants. This one is still going, and I will just leave it in until we get a frost. And you can see there's still some zucchini coming down in there. They've slowed way down, so they're not growing nearly as quickly as they were. But, you know, we're still getting flowers. And it's still plodding along, so we'll just leave it. This bed is going to be garlic, and so I'm waiting. I'll probably wait another week. We need to top this off with some additional mulch and a little bit of fertilizer, and then this will be the garlic bed for fall. I usually put my garlic in the second or third week in October. Along this fence, this is the last of the Asian long bean, which are related to cowpeas, interestingly. I figured that out the last video that I did for you guys. And you can see, here's an example. They get quite long, 2 to 3 feet. And they're fun in stir fries. They need a high heat in order to be really tasty. And I've just mostly left these to dry on the vine. So I'm harvesting seed. And here's an example of a dried pod. The earwigs love these, and so I keep finding earwigs when I'm doing this, which is just not my favorite thing. But there's an example of the seed and what the seed looks like. Beans are very easy to save seed from. They don't tend to cross-pollinate, and so you can collect them pretty easily. So I'm just leaving what's left out here to mature so that I can collect seeds, and I did already collect a pretty good amount. On this side, this was okra, and I'm letting the few that are left in here mature to form seed. I had 3 or 4 different varieties in here, and they did not produce super well. They didn't like this spot. I'm not 100% sure why, but if I were to grow more next year, this is the variety that I would grow. I think this has been the happiest in terms of the plant still looks good. It's not a lot of the other ones, like you can tell, this whole plant is just dying. There's practically nothing left. And then a lot of them have done this, where they have just simply fallen over because the plant has died. And so, like, I can't even let these fully mature for seed because the plant itself has died. So, yeah, okra is an interesting challenge in this climate. It's not really something we're well designed for. So it's been interesting to try to grow it. I thought I was going to have really good luck in this spot this year. And honestly, I think I got less okra than I got last year. But we're going to let these fully mature. I'll put up on the screen the 4 varieties of okra that I currently have seed for, just for fun. This is an old hollyhock that was really gorgeous about 2 months ago. And I'm going to dig this completely out of here. Hollyhocks are perennial in my climate. I don't really love this one. It's got kind of a double big pink flower. I'm not a huge pink flower girl. So this one will get dug out. I had a lot of flowers in this bed last year. And then this one is also a hollyhock. And I may dig this one up and keep it and just transplant it somewhere else. It's a black flowered hollyhock, very pretty. So I might leave that there, or I might take it out and just put it someplace else. But the hollyhocks are still going strong. I did cut off all of the flower pods on this because they were getting really huge. And then on this trellis is the very last of my cucumbers. And they're pretty much finished. There's a few still coming. But they're starting to do this, where you can see it's skinnier at the top, fatter at the bottom. That's kind of an incomplete pollination, is what I think is happening there. And so it's cooled off a ton, and they're pretty much finished. So I've got a few in here that I can still harvest. Like that one's ready for sure. So I've got maybe 4 or 5 more. But I have harvested the heck out of this. For 3 plants, an unbelievable amount of cucumbers have come out of this bed. So pretty awesome. And then the rest of this bed is a late planting of lettuce and spinach. I got virtually 0 germination on the spinach. Spinach hates me. You can see my drip irrigation system is on right now. So you can see how that works. I don't know what it is about me and spinach. I have the worst time with spinach germination. I have tried so many different things, and I can never quite figure it out. These 2 lettuces, which are a romaine style, those were planted really early, like July, mid-July, and I got terrible germination because it was super hot and way too hot for lettuce. And so these were the only 2 lettuce plants that germinated when I did that planting. And so these guys are a little bit bigger. I'll definitely get a nice head of lettuce out of those before it gets too cold. Everything else in here is a scattering of seed that I did in September. And so I've got a nice batch of lettuce coming in here, and I might be able to harvest some of this as baby lettuce, but they're not going to get big enough before it gets cold for me to get an actual head. There is one, here's one spinach. I think that's the only spinach that came up in this bed after an unbelievable amount of planting. I put a lot of seed in here. Some of it was older and I knew it was going to be a bit of a crapshoot, so I put a ton of seed in here. And yeah, that's the only spinach out of everything I planted. So yeah, me and spinach, we are not friends. I don't know what it is. This is the sweet potato bed, and I still haven't dug it, but we will probably dig this Sunday. You can wait until you get a light frost before you dig your sweet potatoes. They are very, very not frost hardy, and so as soon as you get a frost, it will kill the vines. But there's no reason for me to wait that long at this point, because these have definitely fully matured. They've had plenty of time, and it's going to be really fun to get in there and just see what I've got. So I know I've got some for sure, but I should have quite a bit, hopefully, if things worked well. So that's the sweet potato bed, which I'll film when we dig it. I'm trying to leave them as long as possible just to get as big of sweet potatoes as I can, but there's this whole thing about how you're supposed to cure sweet potatoes, where you're supposed to put them in I'll put it on the screen if I get this wrong, because I'm probably not going to remember it right, but it's something like 85 degrees and high humidity for a certain period of time in order to cure them. And I mean, my sweet potatoes are coming out in October. Like, I don't have 85 degrees and high humidity in October. They're really a southern crop. So there's some tricks you can use, like wet burlap over them to increase the humidity. And I usually put them in my greenhouse and just close the greenhouse up so that I can get some heat in there. But sweet potatoes, when they're freshly dug, are not sweet. The starches have not turned to sugars, and they will not taste super great right out of the ground. And so you do need to cure them in some way. And so it's always a challenge for me in this climate to do that. This is obviously basil that has gone to seed. And I just was brushing against this, and you guys, I wish you could smell it. It smells so amazing. So this has been fun to just have thrown a few of those in there. And then I pulled a giant bouquet of these queen lime zinnias out of here a week and a half ago. And so we're getting a little bit of new growth. We might get one more harvest of a bouquet before we get a frost. Zinnias are not frost tolerant at all. And so as soon as we get a frost, those are going to be very dead. But they are sure pretty, and they've just bloomed and bloomed and bloomed and bloomed. And so it was fun to come in here and pick a huge bouquet to put in my kitchen window and then see that there were new flowers still coming. So that's great. This final bed these are beets and carrots that I did plant in July. And so they've done pretty well. You can see I've got some beets in there. I probably should just pull these. I don't think they're getting any bigger, so I need to just pull them and do a nice little beet salad. Let me see down in there. There we go. And I'm not sure how the carrots are coming. Oh yeah, there's a carrot in there. So I was a little late on the game on this, but there are some in there. And then this bed was planted much later, at the same time I planted those lettuces that I was showing you earlier, the late lettuce. And so this is also carrot and beet, but much, much later, early September. And this is too late. These are not going to mature by the time we start getting too cold for things to actively grow. These are both frost tolerant, and so technically they could keep growing. The problem with carrots is they'll go into a holding pattern, beets as well, where they'll survive a frost, but they won't actively grow. And then they think they've been through a winter, and they are both biannual, which means they send up a seed stock the second year. And if it gets cold, they think they've been through a winter, and then they just send up a seed stock. And so unfortunately, I got some nice carrot germination in here. It took a long time. I covered this with cardboard initially for about a week and didn't really see much in the way of germination. And then took the cardboard off, just thinking whatever, it was a failure. And then they all started coming up. So I've got some nice germination in here, but this is not going to be a viable harvest because it's just going to be too late. So always a struggle for us to do fall crops here because it's so hot when you need to get those things in the ground. And then the tail end of this bed originally early in the spring was lots of brassicas and lots of kale. I pulled all of the kale out with the exception of this one lacinato that's still in here. And this lacinato, I'll put some overlay of other video on here. This is the stump of this, and it did grow way out into here. And so there was this huge kale plant that was taking up this big space. You couldn't walk through here. And I did take a pair of loppers and cut that off. And a lot of it was buggy and holey and not salvageable, but I got a couple of pounds of kale that I froze and threw in my freezer. I have a video on how to do that if anybody's interested. It makes a very nice green in the winter. But interestingly, this was the one plant out of the 4 that I had in here that didn't end up with tons of aphids. And so I just decided I would cut it off here. And then this sideways, this side stump just started sending up new growth. And I was like, well, I'll probably get one more nice harvest of fresh kale out of that if I just leave it there. So that's what I've done. But not a lot of aphids on this one. And the ones out in the garden were just buried in aphids. And oh, hello, Mr. Spider. And the ones that I pulled out of here were starting to get really aphidy and not very happy. And so, but you know, these are, the leaves are rolling. But if you get in there and look, there's no aphids in there. So yeah, pretty good. And then obviously lots and lots of Swiss chard still. This was an original planting from early May. Let me come around so you can see the stump of that. I mean, look at that base of that Swiss chard. Can you tell it's related to beets? If we were to try to eat this, I mean, I'm sure it's edible, but it would be super woody and fibrous, so not really good eating, but incredible stump on that Swiss chard. So this has been in the ground for a very long time. And this damage that you see here is from leaf miners. And so a lot of damage on there from leaf miners, and then obviously damage on there from slugs. And so this plant has just struggled all season. And then this one was a volunteer that was in a pot with a brassica, and it's done much better. It's still got some leaf miner damage, but it went in later, and so it was under a lot less pressure because those things tend to be really heavy in the spring. And then, you know, the rest of this plant is beautiful. I'm not a huge chard eater. I do like it frozen and then mixed in with other greens where I put a lot of cheese and things in there, so it's not quite so obvious. It's a little too earthy for me. I struggle with beets as well. But beautiful, beautiful Swiss chard plant that was just kind of a bonus because it was a volunteer in here. Our strawberry green stalk, I've decided I'm going to put this on the porch next year and see if the additional shade on the porch helps me get a bigger crop. And I've got to figure out how to put more dirt in these as well. The dirt level has sunk enough that I think I need to figure out how to do that. I'm not quite sure. We'll let them go dormant and then maybe flip them over and put some dirt in the bottom and put them back in. I'm not sure what that's going to look like. But there were a ton of runners in here that were just almost circling the whole pot, going around and up and down. And I did go through here and pull out. You can see here, this is what everything looked like. See how those are almost connected? Or they are connected because something's gone from one to the other. I went through and pulled out all of the runners in here because I don't need more plants. And it was just way, way, way too much foliage. And so what I was trying to do was get the plants to double down on maybe doing a fall crop of strawberries. And that hasn't really worked. I've gotten 1 or 2 maybe. So again, I don't know what it is with me and strawberries. It's kind of like me and spinach. It's just not my wheelhouse. But that's the latest. And honestly, if I don't get a decent crop next year, I'm just going to resign myself to planting other things in here besides strawberries. So I'll probably use it for greens or something like that. I did try to plant some babies in some holes here. That's what this is, and this plant didn't make it, but I do have a few more that I can fill in other spots. So obviously I'm not getting actual rooting there happening. So that's the green stalk, this funny little Signet Marigold flower bed that's been in here, this pot, has bloomed and bloomed and bloomed and bloomed, and at this point it's pretty much done. But I've also, in the past, I've had calendula in here, and then I've also had nasturtiums. And so now I have a very nice, healthy volunteer crop of nasturtiums coming up all over the place. And interestingly, this funny little viola that has been in there since the spring is getting a second wind now that it's finally cooled off a little bit. So I've got a few more violas in there. But yeah, this bed is pretty much done. And then lastly, this was the hibiscus. Yeah, this was the tea hibiscus, the jicama. And this plant is pretty much done. It's clearly decided it's no longer happy. But this one, that looked like garbage all season, has decided that it is now happy. And so I don't think they really love the heat. It got too hot for them. But you can see we're starting to get some blossoms, so that's fun. I did harvest some of the bracts from this one, and so that's been fun. I have about a tablespoon, I think, of actual hibiscus that you would use for tea. You see these red bracts after they've flowered. That's the part that actually gets harvested. So kind of fun. And I'm going to try these again next year in pots and see if I get a better harvest for sure. And then we're just going to have to do something about this kind of chaos that's happening back here where I haven't really done anything. We have hops. We have a perennial sweet pea, which is also getting a second wind and blooming. The problem with the perennial sweet pea is it spreads. I love it. It doesn't have a scent, but it's very, very pretty. But it is a little bit on the invasive side, although it's been in this bed for 12 years, so it's not that bad. But it does spread, and so it's been a problem. And so this is just a mix of kind of hops and sweet peas, and then there's a lot of oregano in here. I planted oregano one time, and I've never been without it since. It tends to be wildly reseeding in our climate. And it's honestly not a great oregano. It's okay, but it's not super oregano-y, and so it's pretty, and I can use it in a pinch, but it's not the best flavored oregano in the world. And so I've just kind of let it do its thing. And then there's also a wormwood back here. This was planted by a bird, but wormwood is used in various medicinal applications, and so that's kind of fun. Got some Queen Anne's lace in there. So yeah, this is the chaos part of the bed. There's also goldenrod. That's goldenrod that's growing next to the asparagus plants. The hops are climbing up the asparagus. So yeah, this is the part I don't usually show you, the chaos. Although I do love a little chaos in the garden. Hops they're climby and they're hard to control because you really need to wear gloves. They will just shred your hands if you get in there and try to pull stuff out without having a glove on. Here's the tail end of some of the poppies that I had in the spring that were so, so beautiful. These plants are long since done, and they've been kind of buried by the asparagus that's in here, but those were super fun, and hopefully I'll get a few just volunteers next year. That is our early fall October garden, and we're almost done. And I have to admit, I'm kind of here for it. It's been a good season, but I'm ready to move on to some other fun projects. Thanks for watching, Tribe. If you like this kind of content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, leave me a comment and share. I have new content coming out every week, and lots of videos on preserving this bounty and cooking this bounty.